All right, can everyone see my screen again?
Got it.
Okay, perfect. We are going to go ahead and get started. I wanted to welcome everyone here today to the Green Business Certification Program with the City of Dallas, presented by, of course, the Dallas 2030 District. I want to get started, so I'm going to have Natalie introduce herself and get us started.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Happy to see you all here today. Thank you, Salima, for the introduction. And again, this opportunity to connect with the Dallas 2030 District community. So I am Natalie Urquenes. I am the Environmental Sustainability and Resiliency Coordinator for the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. Of course, as you can see here, I work for the City of Dallas, and really excited to be presenting this program to y'all here today. Now, just out of curiosity, I don't usually start my meetings with a poll per se, but I was curious how many of y'all in this group had heard of the Green Business Certification Program, before you were, introduced to it on the agenda at y'all's previous meeting. I don't know if you can have a thumbs up or not, but just curious if this is something new to y'all or if you're already familiar.
City of Fort Worth have this about 10 years ago.
I believe so. I know they still
Okay.
have. I couldn't tell you the actual date of, when it all started. But yeah, certainly there are similar programs with other different cities.
Yeah, some of us have been involved since 10 or 15 years ago when the whole thing started. So we're with you.
Okay, awesome. That's fantastic. Always love hearing that, people are more aware than I previously think, especially with, everyone in this group and everyone's, unique expertise on this. But moving on, since we're all familiar with that, if you can go to the next slide, Salima. Thank you. Alrighty, so just having a brief overview. For this particular presentation, time has been set aside to answer any questions you may have. At that time, again, you've all done this before. If you want to raise your hand or just throw a question into the chat, we'll be able to easily answer those for you, or at least, to the best of our ability. If not, or if you have a question later for me too, the contact information will be provided as well. So of course, as y'all figured out, today I'll be discussing a little about the city of Dallas, with an overview of our sustainability efforts and major policies. Then we will get into the core of today's presentation to discuss more about the program itself, and then we'll get into how the Dallas 2030 district can play a role in all this and, how these organizations kind of blend, right? So again, going through all of that, if we could go ahead and advance to the next slide, please. So for those unfamiliar with the city's efforts, this is just kind of a brief overview, of all the different types of, policies, and, things we do, with the city. Um, so essentially, the whole point here is to show that we have a history of advancing sustainability, and we certainly have plans to continue those efforts. But we don't want to just stick with the status quo. We want to be a leader, and hopefully inspire other future green leaders. Again, this is policies. We also have public commitments, coalitions, things like that. I'm sure y'all are all familiar with. Some of the more popular policies we'll say are the complete streets, again, advancing more livable, walkable, bikeable, and transportation efficient streets. Other concepts such as integrated stormwater management principles. Um, Another one you might find and are probably already aware about is the 2019 Green Energy Policy, which requires municipal operations to run on 100% renewable energy. And then lastly, I'll just touch on the 2024 bond CCAP resolution, which outlines sustainability recommendations for 2024 bond projects. Other comments and pledges to note are the 2022 U.S. Department of Energy Better Buildings Challenge. We also have that same year the City Plus Business Climate Alliance. Again, those are just to name to name a few. Either way, we're very proud of these efforts and excited to share more for what the future holds, such as today's conversation on the topic of our Green Business Certification Program. If you don't mind going to the next slide, please. Perfect. So I think it's safe to say that everyone is pretty familiar with this. I'm gonna guess, seeing some heads nod. Okay, very cool. Always love to hear that. But anyway, with that being said, just as a reminder, this framework has selected targets of reducing greenhouse gas emissions by 43% by the year 2030 and 100% by 2050. Y'all have very similar goals, kind of in the name, right? We can guess. And anyway, to make the target 2030 achievable, it's important that we continue to strengthen existing partnerships and of course work to discover new and build upon new relationships. How can we get more information? How can we collaborate in a way that's more efficient and beneficial for everybody? Prioritizing this type of collaboration with our partners and residents. It's how marginalized communities can be uplifted and ultimately more voices can be heard. Honestly, that's one of my favorite parts about the CCAP, and I think is extremely important that, we discuss. Another thing I appreciate about today's opportunity is that I'm able to speak with, all these different perspectives and all of these, again, different expertise, different agencies, everybody from property managers to community leaders, all extremely important and all really valuable as we build, this program up and try to make it even more successful. Oh, sorry, if you don't mind, Salima, my bad. All right, so getting into the fun stuff now. Here we have more details about the program. Dallas Green Business Certification Program recognizes Dallas businesses that implement green initiatives and support ethical practices, along with priding itself on being available to businesses of all types and sizes. We recognize how diverse the Dallas business community is, and we want the program to remain inclusive. That diversity, that advantage should be celebrated. And it's one of the reasons why we are making it less restrictive. Examples of these types of businesses include hotels, office buildings, trade and distribution centers, warehouses, restaurant and bars, and that's, again, just to name a few. Of course, we are open to others as well. Another big feature of this program, of course, is that it's free. That always sounds nice, right? Arguably one of our best features. There are no fees or upfront costs to participate. Of course, ultimately, we hope that encourages more businesses to participate, especially smaller businesses who, may be discouraged by seeing an upfront cost or maybe just kind of intimidated by seeing, that initial dollar amount. But again, not here, totally free to participate anyway. Basically, anyone who is interested in applying, we encourage to do so. There really isn't anything to lose from applying, honestly. Maybe just a little bit of time spent to participate in sending the application. Really, we just want to be able to showcase all of these different efforts and all of the wonderful implementation strategies that, businesses that, organizations such as the Dallas 2030 District are doing. And additionally, if anyone is reaching out or looking to start this type of endeavor in their business, or again, has not as much information about sustainability as we would like, we are a resource to encourage and hopefully, provide education on these types of topics, at the least, to get them inspired to start the process. They don't have to go through certification, though we would love that. But essentially getting them to that step so they can ultimately get to the application process. This is especially advantageous for businesses, again, newer to this field. We also want to make sure on the opposite side that we are highlighting businesses, are on the opposite end of the spectrum, like basically, again, kind of like y'all, honestly, you kind of already know what you're doing. You've been doing this for a while. How do we make it easy for y'all? Like, what's just another thing to highlight and again, celebrate? So that's really important. And again, having all these different levels, ranging from bronze to platinum, really showcases all the different types of scenarios, industries that Dallas has to offer. And oh, sorry, again, if you don't mind, thank you so much. So, as you can see here, we have outlined our goals. Originally, this was under the sanitation department. It highlighted businesses who are able to prevent waste, incorporate recycling, with other waste concepts, along with other sustainable action. Makes sense, right? You would think sanitation with waste. However, this past spring, the program was recently transferred to OEQS, or the Office of Environmental Quality and Sustainability. And since we went ahead with that transition, naturally we just thought, well, why don't we go ahead and, update and revitalize this program? This is a great opportunity to kind of assess what we have and, ultimately, how do we make it better? So again, the purpose of these goals are to create enhanced value and recognition. Our aim is to strengthen and grow the program so that more businesses have opportunities to participate in a way that is easily accessible and understandable for most audiences. And then, of course, the most obvious fact is to receive the benefits the program has to offer from certification. The other goal is incorporating greater community engagement. We all want to attract businesses with all industry types. And of course, with that comes various levels of knowledge, while also simultaneously growing consumer awareness to bring in a broader audience and generate more positive action. I think that's something that can really separate us from the previous iteration of this program, recognizing that there's a lot of movement behind not only just businesses themselves, but people who want to invest in sustainable actions and in those type of opportunities. How do we bring those two groups together in a way that is easy and also, again, accessible? So I think that is something probably I'm most encouraged about with these updates. And I'm really excited to see the community aspect is super important, especially with all of our mutual goals, right? To support sustainable actions, reduce water and energy consumption, support better efficient buildings, how do we build that resiliency? There's so many pieces. So again, the more that people are aware and brought into this, I think the greater benefit everyone has to stand for this. And then lastly, of course, we have an improved user experience. We value your input as business owners, as industry experts, and we want to make the certification process more transparent and again, inclusive to different types of industries and sustainable actions, not just necessarily waste focus. How do we highlight, again, things within your organization that you're focusing on and your goals, topics like that, actions that, really have a lot of value and a lot of, I don't want to say purpose per se, but it's a big bang for your buck is a short way to put it, honestly. When we think about reducing our greenhouse gas emissions, what are the interventions that really make a difference and that we can highlight? Um, Secondly, as I kind of mentioned earlier, we also want to provide adequate support and resources for businesses to get involved and participate. How do we take things that maybe weren't as clear before, or how can we provide even better topic focus or, again, education on certain things that maybe some businesses weren't aware of, or, again, other efforts that could be easily, uptaken throughout businesses across various industries. Um, so yeah, so again, these are our goals, but it just reinforces how we want to define our progress and the motivation kind of behind why why we were making these efforts to improve this program and kind of revamp it. Um, and then lastly, the reason I kind of gave a brief reminder about our CCAP was because it was really a major source of inspiration for updating our program and finding ways, again, to highlight all of the unique opportunities and efforts that are being implemented across the city. If you can move on to the next slide, please. So here we are going to go into kind of just a brief overview of how the certification process works. Of course, as you can see here, we have our 5 easy steps. First and foremost are the eligibility requirements. Then, simply download the application with the sustainability scorecard. With this particular version of the scorecard as it's drafted, we are trying to make it a little bit different for kind of different industry types. Again, focusing on, what are unique ways that businesses can highlight some of those efforts, and, we can distinguish kind of what are features of those industries as well. It makes sense that a trading or distribution center could focus on transportation, right? Again, kind of what are things that really benefit them. And then, of course, on with the next step, we're going to submit the application. There will be a verification process. And then last and easiest out of all these steps, of course, is to celebrate. So another benefit with this program that we aim to accomplish is by keeping the certification process relatively simple and streamlined. I'll explain some of the eligibility in greater detail on the next slide. Most of them are pretty straightforward, however, or you've probably seen in other local area programs. Again, pretty simple. For those who are really familiar with your particular business efforts, the scorecard should be a breeze. If that's your field and that's all you work on, again, should be simple, especially with an online form. Try to make this, again, pretty easy, and also easy for us too, right? Having an online version is just kind of better for everyone, I think. However, for those not as familiar with their company's practices, or, maybe for larger entities, it takes a little bit to find that sustainability manager or facilities manager. We do have specific and clear instructions as well as a guide about the questions to provide even more clarity. And again, this guide, of course, will be tailored for general audiences. So again, the individuals who aren't as familiar with terms, or, maybe aren't quite sure what makes up a greenhouse gas, can be better informed, and again, just kind of be level with all of these topics. So when they're filling out the scorecard, it makes sense to them and they can really, kind of see how that fits within their business's practice. We are also happy to schedule a time where one of our team members can work alongside businesses and go through the checklist together. If for whatever reason someone's really just struggling, or if someone prefers that, one-on-one kind of interaction, we are definitely available to help with that process as well. And again, just making sure everyone has an opportunity to fill out the application, and get as involved as they want to. And of course, with that being said, ideally you want someone who's more familiar with the green actions. But again, for businesses who are not as familiar or, again, the larger ones, try and make this as easy as possible. Once the application has been submitted, our team will reach out to schedule an on-site evaluation for a quick tour around the facility. This is just simply to verify that you're adhering, to the scorecard's actions, since we are not asking for proof within the application itself. Again, trying to make this process a little more streamlined so people aren't off-put by maybe a bulk that would otherwise happen if those types of proofs were to be included. This is not intended to be a full-length investigation. The site tour should be quick and hopefully painless. We're not trying to make this a records purge. It's not trying to ask for every single month or I couldn't even imagine all of the records that could be included, right? But again, not asking for that, just trying to verify that, when, the business is who they say they are first and foremost, but also that they're just kind of integrating some of these more basic features that they are claiming to have within the scorecard. Additionally, this is also really convenient for us to take photos and other promotional marketing items that can be highlighted. For example, if you have a hotel with a vegetable garden, or I don't know, maybe your building has geothermal capabilities, pictures are a great way to showcase that. Again, especially to community members or audiences that have no idea that you're even doing that, but would love to support that. That's something we can definitely offer and highlight for you. And then last but not least, of course, again, celebrating these accomplishments, and again, showcasing that to your customers. And then one thing to note that is important is that when we do announce, when the application will be open again, this is all going to go in much greater detail than kind of what I'm outlining here. It's going to be way more in depth and very specific on the instructions, when and where, how, all that good stuff. And then secondly, if the thought of the site tour proves to be too daunting or for whatever reason, there's some type of limiting complication, the benefit of updating this program and kind of being in a pilot phase is that this feature can be adjusted. So, it's kind of more convenient for businesses as well as for us, right? Want to make sure that we're trying to make this as a smooth of a process as possible. And then additionally, with this as well, this type of verification, I think it's important that we do, hold some type of small accountability. I think it's important that, again, businesses are being honest and that they actually are adhering to the actions and principles that they're claiming on the scorecard as well. And then if you could go to the next slide, please. Sorry, I'll water break. Alrighty, so back to how the certification process works and our eligibility requirements. Again, the purpose of these requirements are just to make sure we are supporting locally owned and legitimate businesses. We want to ensure that our fellow leaders are setting positive examples and of course, following all the laws and procedures that you're supposed to be following. This is something our legal team is probably very appreciative of, moving forward with this. The certification requirements apply to maintenance side of certification. This includes the smaller things such as sending updated contact information. Another kind of obvious but important thing to note that we made clear is that businesses are staying consistent with their sustainable actions while they have certification, essentially maintaining that there's not a drop off, right? So for example, if you got a silver, hopefully you're maintaining that silver status until you renew. If something breaks down or if you're not able to complete an action, that for whatever reason drops you, for example, like a bronze, this is why we want to make sure we have those renewal requirements, and kind of just staying up to date, right, with all of those things, especially with contact information and all the different types of information that's out there. If you want access to resources, that's particularly important. And then, of course, lastly, and probably the easiest thing, is allowing us to show off your business with some photos, like I mentioned in the previous slide. These photos can be used on our website or on other social media with the applicant's permission. And then, of course, jumping a little ahead, one of the benefits of partnering with the city and participating in these types of programs is that there is a lot of media present, and different ways to show off accomplishments and spread positive news. We literally have a whole communications department that is geared to showcasing these types of programs and, again, different stories or pictures, or basically, capturing your business's unique perspective and sustainable attributes. Next slide, please. All right. So here we get into the fun side of the sustainability scorecard. The scorecard, and again, apologies if you're already familiar with this, just to briefly go through. Essentially, it just acts like a test to see how well a business performs against the various categories and questions. Ultimately, the score determines the status level. Of course, there is a minimum threshold of points to earn certification. So, essentially, if you don't meet a bronze or if you only get like 25 points, of course, you can't expect to be certified. Additionally, these are designed to incorporate the goals and philosophies of CCAP, which again, to reiterate, I think is a benefit and a distinction that separates us from the previous program, highlighting all of the different categories and topics that there is to offer. Of course, some topics will be bigger than others. For example, not everyone's really going to have food at their business, but certainly, restaurants could take advantage of that type of feature. So again, just highlighting all of the different industry actions and practices. And so with that being said, excuse me 1 second, I lost my note. That's okay. So yeah, that's okay. Like I said, with the scorecard, it's pretty simple. Again, trying to highlight all of the different features, separating from kind of a waste-centric approach that was taken last year. We've already received positive feedback that, this kind of more dynamic design is much more favorable. And again, just allows different options and creative actions to be seen, which again is really the whole point of the program, right? Like, how do we celebrate businesses and celebrate these different actions of sustainability and, being green? If you could go on to the next slide, Salima, please. So one of the features we are sticking with and keeping consistent are the 4 levels of certification for green businesses. Of course, as you can see here, we have the lowest category, which is the bronze, and then the highest category being the platinum. So pretty basic. And again, the reason I like having this kind of tiered approach, because it does allow us to offer more benefits according to the different category. It kind of just makes sense and seems fair to offer, different benefits for people who are going the extra mile, for example, like on a platinum level status, right? Versus someone, kind of just getting to this and are still very new on their green journey. Um, we will have a resource guide that helps identify the different benefits and perks of each certification tier, which will be easily lined out for someone to determine, and hopefully motivate them to want to pursue, for example, from bronze to silver, or essentially we would like them to get to the highest level that they can, right? Um, and then since different levels and benefits are being offered, I would like to also point out another resource that we will be providing related to the transparency of how each question is scored and how each question is weighed. So this time around, we are going to try and be clear about why the scorecard is designed as it is and why certain questions are so many points. Again, really just being uh, again, I guess clear, sorry, about why things are kind of being in the category they are. So, say, for example, if a question is worth 3 points, what makes it a 3 point question? Like, what are the features, that give it that extra weight versus like a simple 1 point question? What are those kind of characteristics and really identify, again, for smaller businesses or people not as familiar, if they want to get, the best kind of bang for your buck, if you will, and get that gold status, what are those 3 point actions, that are really going to be more beneficial for them? And of course, more beneficial sustainability, in alignment, again, really trying to reduce our greenhouse gas and meet our 2030 goals. Um, and this distinction was actually added from previous user feedback. So we are really excited to be incorporating that, and just really goes to show, how we are trying to really incorporate, different feedback, different perspectives, to make this the best version that it can be moving forward. If you could please go ahead. All righty. So here we kind of get into the benefits again, kind of touched on them a little bit before. Of course, first and foremost, it is free. Again, taking a comprehensive approach, another tiered approach, as we mentioned before, really highlighting the differences between each category. There's greater exposure and easier marketing, as well as networking, resources, and hopefully more benefits to be developed. So the great thing about presenting to an organization such as the Dallas 2030 District is that you're all very familiar about the motivation behind the sustainable practices and, the real life-saving potential that it holds. So that's great to kind of save on that, right? And I can really focus on how partnering with the city of Dallas can give businesses a competitive edge with, minimal effort. Other than the cost, the benefit is one of the first things that people look at. And it's really important that, we gain traction with those. How do we make it easy for people to be like, oh, you know, I love that. That's great. And it's easy to obtain. Would love to participate. And just really, again, reinforcing that audience or connecting with the positive benefits that this program has to offer. One of the other benefits that is different from previous years, again, we've already touched on, is that, again, this will be much more comprehensive, and highlighting different actions apart from just waste, which is also important. But we all know there are other different goals, and distinct actions that we can take that are also just as important. Um, you know, Basically touching on goals that Dallas 2030 District is already working towards, as well as our own CCAP actions, right? So definitely having the same goal and kind of same outline regarding sustainable practices. And of course, we are working to capitalize, on existing partnerships that the city already has to offer. And again, participating in these types of opportunities to gain traction and form better partnerships so we can really expand on creating greater networking opportunities and resources. And then lastly, and probably I think the most important topic of this presentation, is that we would love to hear your input on what benefits would be important to you. This is an opportunity to have your voices heard, and see how we can offer an even better experience. Um, so again, thank you for this opportunity and excited to hear later on what y'all's feedback will hopefully be. If you could please go on to the next slide. Alrighty, so here we have the release date. This was taken from our website, essentially just announcing that we are relaunching soon. So right now at this stage, we're in the middle of approving all of our final details. We hope to relaunch and open our application later this summer. We are excited to see how many people respond and all the different types of businesses that will present themselves. My hope for this update is to be able to receive more applicants, overall, of course, but especially from smaller businesses. Until I really started working on this project, I was unaware that, 3/4 of businesses in Dallas employ less than 100 employees. So, pretty small. And I think they could really benefit from this type of opportunity. And, again, how do we kind of focus that and empower smaller businesses to want to participate in programs like this? How do we make it easy? And again, of course, across the board, I just hope that people have a more positive experience with this program. And again, they're able to see and enjoy the benefits we have to offer from the city. If you could please go on to the next slide. So of course, I have to mention the Dallas 2030 district benefits. Green business certification also advocates for green infrastructure, high performance buildings, as well as some of the other goals that have been mentioned before. Of course, Dallas 2030 district also has an opportunity to provide that feedback that I just mentioned, to bring greater incentives, to green business, and of course help promote some of your ideas and actions as well. Green business certification also brings greater exposure and awareness to your organization, and again, highlighting those goals and achievements that your organization has. And of course, greater sharing of knowledge leads to new resources, and can also link to other like-minded organizations. This program also highlights that businesses should be implementing, benchmarking, best practices for green infrastructure. And of course, just trying to make the city of Dallas better for our residents, and overall a better community together. We recognize how important the role of the Dallas 2030 district is. And, again, with that alignment of those goals. So, for example, I know one of the things that's important in terms of resources, for example, is like having greenhouse gas inventory information. We are actually going ahead and updating that as well, and hope to release that report later this year. Excited to be making that announcement. Hopefully your organization can benefit from that information as well, when that is finally released. Another thing I would also like to point out, again, touched on this earlier, but again, you'll have such unique and in-depth insight on these topics. There's so much expertise in this room, and I really appreciate, being able to, again, present to this. And I hope, this will, with, hopefully have your input, with the potential to make this program better for future businesses, as well as for us and the Dallas 2030 district. So for the next few months, again, we will be in our pilot stage to make sure that our new processes and strategies have easier navigation and greater benefits. Again, just collaborating together. Um, and last but not least, of course, we want to hear your input, especially on the checklist as it comes out on these processes. This is the time to make it better. This is the time to update. So any feedback is appreciated. Alrighty, if you could please go on to the next slide. So here we have the Dallas 2030 district rule, as well as other organizations too, right? As we are in this transition process, we do ask that everyone stays informed. Again, share your feedback, and of course, spread the word. So we are again launching later this summer with announcement throughout our various communication channels, such as email, social media, our website, which is actually at dallascityhall.com/green business. You'll see it under the OEQS page. Makes sense since it was under sanitation, right? And again, with that feedback, if you're interested about sharing your thoughts, please let us know. Like again, it's the opportunity to hear it and just to make the program better. And then last but not least, which is again, thank you for this opportunity, is spreading the word. The more that people hear about it, the more that consumers hear about it, the greater we can expand those benefits, and really just have a better community when it comes to our goal of reducing Dallas's greenhouse gas emissions. Alrighty. So for this presentation, again, I want to thank everyone who took the time to listen to our Green Business Certification Program. We're excited to see its potential and hope to gain even more support. I apologize. I kind of breezed through that because I get really nervous and talk fast. So please excuse if I kind of rushed through that. But the benefit of that is we have plenty of time for questions. Really, again, want to hear what y'all have to say, or if there's a point I can retouch on and provide further clarification, I'd be happy to do so.
Natalie, thank you. That was great. So informative. And I want to open it up to any questions that anybody might have, or any comments, or any thoughts.
How can we get our application in quick for the 2030 district? We can get us certified.
That is a great question. So ultimately with that, I haven't quite heard it from are you just talking about like individual businesses, sir? Or are you talking about like as a program? I apologize.
Program.
Okay. So that is
Program.
definitely a unique feature. I don't know, I'll be honest, I don't know that I hadn't considered that. But it's certainly worth the idea and looking into, right? Um, you know, Previously and kind of, with this program update, we just kind of focused on um, one building kind of sole interest, right? Because I know we had questions about, especially with like hospitals who have multiple buildings, how are we going to, integrate a sustainability certification program for larger and even corporations like that. So for us, we're really trying to make it building focused. But I do like that question, and I think there's definitely potential to see how that could work. Um, Paul, I don't know if you want to add anything to that on that idea.
Well, we've been, Sims probably told you, we've been as an organization for 10 years, so we're celebrating. But we got
Yay.
three different levels of membership, all of which are interested in the green building type program because that's why we're a part of it. But some of it are organizations, that are members of our organization, including AIA and the USGBC and a bunch of other ones. And there's also, of course, the individuals would be part of an organization somewhere. But those of us that have been involved in the LEED certification program which some of us started. I started with that in I think 1994. So I've been
Congratulations.
through a couple hundred of them. So if that certification, if we can be of service, 2030 district can help. We certainly want to do that. And Salima can get you coordinated with the right people on that. But we're here to help, and we're interested in the program, and we want to be a member.
Thank you so much, first and foremost. And again, congratulations on all of your years of experience. We really appreciate that and would love to connect on future opportunities and see, how we can benefit each other. So again, thank you, Salima, for that. And yeah, we could definitely talk about how to better incorporate members and, work through that strategy together, I think.
Definitely. I think it's super important. And I do want to say there was a question in the chat. I will be sending out, session details, contact information, and the recording on Friday to everyone. So if there's anything that you missed or you popped in late or had to leave early, you'll have the session fully recorded with these questions on there and that contact information for you to reach out to Natalie or to Paul or anyone in the city or myself to get you the information that you need. And I think there was a question in the chat, and it was, I did not see that Dallas is listed on the A list for the 2025. Oh, no, sorry, that was the answer. It says, do you incorporate CDP rating into the process? And additionally, will the city of Dallas be submitting a CDP evaluation this year? So I know that Paul answered it in the chat, but did you want
Yes,
to
we
answer
did.
it? Yeah.
Right,
Okay.
we did submit, and we were ranked as we were graded as an A minus this year. So we did, and as far as incorporating CDP into the green business process, I mean, the idea of it is to keep it practical for small and the large business community, so that everyday sustainability practices can be suitable for a broad range of businesses. So it's a little different from LEED in that, there's not like specific building standards, things like that. We're trying to keep it as practical as we can to get as many people involved as we can with the Green Business Program.
And CDP, somebody was asking what that stands for. It's Carbon Disclosure Project,
Mm-hmm.
just so everyone's on the same page. So it looks like applications or the application process will start sometime in late summer. And you'll keep me posted. And I'm sure it's going to be all over in the newsletter and on social media and on your website as well. But we're looking at probably August, another maybe 6 or so weeks until I can't believe I just said that. August is around the corner, but another 6 or 8 weeks, we should be able to get our applications in. And will there
Definitely.
be somebody who from the team that can help? Because I know this process is kind of new and, kind of understanding the different certifications, the bronze to the platinum, and where organizations and companies would kind of fit in there. So I was just wondering if there was going to be, team availability for that.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we are going to be available, if someone wants to reach out and do kind of like a one-on-one session or just do something over the phone, we'll be more than happy to set up that type of accommodation. Especially like you mentioned, as we roll this program out, we're going to be all hands on deck to make sure that we answer all of those questions or support anyone who has any questions, concerns. Like I mentioned before previously as well, we are trying to integrate a lot of easily accessible resources, primarily through our website. So again, mentioning that program guide, hopefully they can utilize that first, or we'll make sure there's kind of like I guess like a fast track option, right? So that people can easily see that. If they want to go through that themselves, rather than talking on the phone or something like that. Even providing things such as like simple like one pager FAQs, essentially whatever type of easy resources we can outline. We want to make sure that people are able to easily download that or view them. Again, all the options are available. But yes, whatever extra team support that they need, we will be available for that. And again, thank you for having that contact information up earlier.
There's another
Will this,
question. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
oh, sorry, Selena.
Oh,
Will this
sorry, Jerry.
program be, yeah, will this program be coordinated or integrated with the green permit program for the construction of buildings that is now in place from the building permit group that's under potential revision, which we understand we're working with? But is this going to be interfaced or coordinated or communicated with the building permit system for green buildings?
Yeah, that's a great question, Jerry. So right now we have not identified that kind of alliance, but because I think the other emphasis too is to also kind of, I don't want to say give a shout out, that's corny. But we'll also say, we want to also be able to showcase older buildings as well, not just newer permitted ones. As you well know, a lot of the newer buildings have a lot more advantages with like, the newer city protocols and of course, like you just mentioned, that green permitting process. So while it's definitely something to look into as of right now, that's not something we had explored.
And we have met with the green building with planning and zoning and planning and development, and we've discussed our green business program and we've discussed their program just so we could kind of get an understanding about the difference between the two, and just so that we can do some internal engagement as well. So we'll definitely keep them in the mix. I'm not sure how the two programs are going to necessarily overlap because, as we said, we're trying to keep this program, um, you know, I don't want to say necessarily simple for the community, but we want to keep it to where, we can get as many businesses engaged and it's not too technical in a sense. But at the same time, we do appreciate, engaging internally so that we can if we can improve the program or if there's a way that we can work together with planning and development, we definitely will. And I saw a good question in there too about faith-based organizations. That's a good one. We really do need to reach out to faith-based organizations. I know that hasn't been at the top of our conversations, but thank you, Kelly, for suggesting that because we'll definitely add that on for
I'm here to help
outreach.
them. I can help with that one. That's part of
Okay.
my PhD research is faith-based organizations in North Texas. So yes, I will reach out.
Okay, great, great. Well, yeah, let's work together then.
One of the reasons my question, Paul, is to coordinate these so that there's not a conflict between those two programs, because some of us are involved in both sides.
Okay.
So the idea is the changes and the updating for the green building permit program should enforce what you're doing now for the entire city.
Understood.
Yeah. So we're here to help with that if we can.
Yeah. Jerry, I make sure I get your email address. I'm gonna put my email address in the chat just so we can talk.
Okay.
And Paul, I can send you his information also.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Sounds good.
There was a question in the chat, but there was a question before I get to the question in the chat. So I have a member asking if previously they were a part of this program and they want to, I guess, join again. Is there a different process, or are they already members, or how will that work?
Yeah, so that's a great question and something we've been trying to think about. We definitely want to give credit to those organizations. As of right now, I think the best solution is just having them recertify. Most of our members are proud to admit, right, that they received, gold and platinum status. So I feel confident that they should be able to minimally maintain those types of statuses or hopefully improve upon, right? Some of those buildings I'm sure have gone through renovations or upgrades that they'd really like to distinguish. And I think that the recertification and going through that checklist again really can just highlight those advantages and hopefully all of the new work that they've been able to progress to. Of course, we are still working to get their feedback on that and reaching out to them. Definitely don't want to leave them wayside. And we appreciate all of the businesses, that have previously participated. I don't know if y'all are aware, but there were some heavy hitters in there, and we would like to continue, with that certification and that relationship.
There's a question from someone in the chat. I guess they relate to the presentation. Any updates on how the city of Dallas is planning to implement the CCAP goals for putting solar on city facilities in particular and other green building related goals? That's also in the chat if you wanted to reread it.
Oh, okay. Thank you. Sorry, I have like my timer going off on the side. But to answer that question, just to quick summarize that answer. Yes, so the sustainability checklist will incorporate those same CCAP concepts, integrating topics of sustainable and renewable energy, things like that, and incorporating, not just solar, but other ways that energy consumption can be reduced or, deviate, I guess is the best way to explain it from, traditional, we'll say fossil fuels, right? So yeah, we definitely do touch up on that. Simply, I apologize. I think there was a second part to that question.
Yeah, so goals for putting solar on city facilities in particular and other green building related goals.
Okay, so yes, so there is definitely a topic about green buildings, as well as kind of, as of right now, I should say with this particular update, it's still getting approved at the checklist. So I don't want to give too much away. But it does also incorporate nature-based solutions. And again, a lot of the topics that you already see in CCAP, bringing up, and some familiar objectives such as those mentioned.
Okay, thank you for that. And then, I know Susan had to hop off because she had another meeting, but she had a suggestion of reaching out to the economic development team because they touch businesses. And then she was also talking about, I don't know if you've reached out to PACE. Charlene and Mariah, I believe, were on the call and had to hop off as well. But, as they are Dallas 2030 district community members. And so, they work with buildings and businesses as well. So, but I thought that was something good that Susan said, economic development, to, collaborate with them as well with this program.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I'm so glad. Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Paul.
Oh, no. I gave Sue a thumbs up on that.
Yeah,
That's a good point. And what it makes me think about is when we're visiting these businesses, what type of outreach we're going to give them, those type of things, right? So, yeah, Sue brought up a good point with that one.
Yeah, and I just wanted to touch up upon that's actually how I found, kind of my business profile statistic I mentioned earlier. They've been a great resource so far, and we hope to engage more with them on this topic. So we briefly, had communications, but certainly, want to expand that internal partnership and hopefully bring them a little more involved, as Sue was saying. So again, great point, and I'm so glad she brought that up.
Well, I think that's it for the questions. And, I want to thank you, Natalie, Paul, for hopping on this call and, giving this overview and presentation. We're looking forward to participating and to learn more in the next 6 to 8 weeks about, the next steps and processes and anything else that you need on our end. We're here. But again, thank you so much. And I believe you had one more team member on here. Is it Quorum?
Karam,
Yes,
yes.
Quadri. He's on here somewhere.
Yeah,
Good morning.
well,
There he is. I see him.
well, I also wanted to just make sure that we acknowledged Kurum also here in the conversation because I know he was a part of this as well.
Yes.
But thank you again. And I will send out contact information. I'll send out this session so that everybody has it. It's going to be uploaded to our YouTube channel. I'll send everything out tomorrow. But if you have any additional questions, you can reach out to me, Natalie, Paul, and even Kurum for any additional questions that you may have. But do keep us posted. We have a members meeting in August. So Paul, hopefully, Natalie, if you can join us in Kurum in that meeting, you can give us an update and we can get started with the process on our end as well. All
Yeah,
right.
thank you so much,
Sounds
Selima.
good.
We appreciate that. I'm really excited to be partnering with y'all. And again, thank you for the opportunity to talk to you folks today.
Yeah, and Jerry, let's talk because I want to hear about the overlap concerns you have. So, if that's something we need to address proactively, that we're on top of that.
Okay, we're ready to go.
All right.
All right, perfect. Well, I hope that everyone has a wonderful Thursday. It's what do we call it? Junior Friday? No, yeah, Junior Friday into the weekend. So I hope everyone has a wonderful weekend and a wonderful summer. But hopefully we will see you before then.
All right. Thank you.
Take care. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Hope you have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, everyone.